Hello everyone. Today the trilogy will be concluded. We're going to talk about the third role of existence, end. I beg you to listen carefully, as this matter is very complicated and requires a lot of reasoning. Now, let us begin. As we've determined in the video about causality, the existence of cause and effect is based on movement. However, for there to be a movement in the first place, there must be a point towards which the movement is directed, just as there is a point from which the movement begins. Such point is called end, and its function is exactly the opposite as the function of the cause. If causality is that from which everything comes, finality is that towards which everything is directed. This explains the eternal generation of the end from the form. Because if form comes from the cause, then form is directed towards the end. It can't be otherwise by definition. The classic example here is the analogy of the carpenter. Imagine there is a carpenter. His job is to make a table, so that people may be able to eat and drink on it. In this analogy, the carpenter represents the cause of the table, the design of the table represents its form, and dining represents its end. You can tell that in order for something to have an end, it must have a form that suits that end. I will now ask you a very simple yet really complicated question. What is good? I mean, how do we identify something good or bad? We can try to find an answer if we look at daily speech. For example, this restaurant is good. This statement obviously means that the food in that restaurant tastes good. Now, isn't the end of a restaurant to provide good food for its customers? Of course. Then we say that a restaurant that makes good food is a good restaurant. Furthermore, a good engineer is an engineer that succeeds in doing his work flawlessly, just as he is expected to. It seems therefore that an object is good if that object accomplishes its natural goal.
But Thomas, then you believe Auschwitz was good because it achieved its goal?
Okay, listen, I'm tired of hearing this argument against my claim. Existence is the highest thing. Existence is also finality itself, and we say that something is good whenever it accomplishes its goal. But this is, of course, relative to that object. If we want to know what is good by objective standards, we must look at the good of the highest being, that is, existence. What is the good relative to existence? Well, since the good of something is whatever the end of that something is, then the good of existence is its goal. But then, what is the goal of existence? Simple. We determined that all three roles of existence are existence themselves. This applies to finality as well, and therefore the end of existence is existence itself. In other words, existence is its own goal. By the same reasoning, we can say that existence is also goodness itself. This is why not everything that follows its own goal is good by universal standards. In a mafia organization, the good of the organization is to extort as much money as possible, but in the society in which the organization lives, the good of the society completely changes based on the frame of reference. If we want to know what is objectively good, we must look at what is the goal of the objectively true, that is existence. This is all fine, but on a practical scale, what is the actual end of everything? Well, I argue that that end is none other than love.
Ha ha ha, stupid Christian weaklings. Still revolving around loving people, Christianity made Europe weak by destroying our strong pagan values. This is all a conspiracy from the Levante. Christian feelers praising a dead Jew on a stick.
In all seriousness, if you think about it, loving something means wanting the good of that something, and the good is the end. Then the act of loving means willing the end of that something. Now, if you remember, the form generates the end eternally. So it is not absurd to say that the form wills the end, and therefore the form performs an act of love. By the same line of reasoning, the cause also performs an act of love, since finality also comes from the cause. Loving the end, therefore, is willing the good, but the end is good itself, and therefore loving the good means willing the end. In other words, the meaning of everything, especially the meaning of existence, is love itself. Well guys, this is all for finality. We've officially concluded the talk on existence. However, there are still 2 videos in the metaphysics part before we come to the next chapter. And remember, we haven't even scratched the surface. We have a long way to go, and I hope with all of my essence, that we will make it all the way through. To the very end. And as always, be well.